So this video is about feather stitch, which you'll find is very similar to the fly stitch in the last video. Here's your basic feather stitch, and you'll see that there's these same V-shaped loops, but instead of going straight down in a line, they alternate back and forth. So it comes in and it forms the next V and the next loop, and it just goes back and forth. Here it is along a curve, and I've added some French knots at the intersections or the tips. You could do this with French knots or lazy daisy stitches, some of the other things we've learned. And here is a double or triple feather stitch where I've made several in one direction and then started working back the other direction. So let's take a look at how you make a feather stitch. I drew some guidelines on the fabric. I drew 4 guidelines about 1/4 inch apart, and I drew some other markings about 1/4 inch apart as well. And this is really big. You're going to want your guidelines about half the width of your actual stitch. So because these are 1/4 inch, the stitch is actually going to be like 1/2 inch wide, which is really wide, but I wanted you to see it. So you come to the top of the fabric, you're going to skip one line and go directly across and go down, but leave a loop in your fabric. And you're going to come up in the center of that for your V, one tick down. And right now it's just like fly stitch. If we continued on a straight line and just did that, you'd have fly stitch. But instead we're going to go straight across, skipping this line and going to this one. And then we're going to come up in the center of those 2 lines at this next tick down, which, as you notice, is the same as this end of this V. So then we're going to come back over here at the same as end of this V, skipping that one line in the middle and coming up in the center there, which is the same center as the V above it. So you're just going to alternate back and forth like that. You can get a little bit more freeform with this once you feel comfortable with the basics. This is very geometric, and so it's going to be a great border. But if you wanted to do foliage, you might not want it so regimented. So here I'm just going to go straight across one line, come up somewhere between those 2 lines, come basically straight across from there, come up somewhere between those 2 lines, and you're going to start getting more irregular V's. You could start to curve it around a shape, or just do something a little bit more relaxed, and that would be easier for some plant leaves or foliage rather than something so geometric. In this flower sampler, you can see the feather stitch here in these darker purple flowers as their stems, and it's also in these really delicate pale green stems, and that one wasn't as structured. It was a little bit more freeform, but it's the same stitch. I also added it to the alphabet sampler here on this Q with this little feathery looking greenery that I added to it.